I've been convincing my mom to build a personal brand for what feels like the last several years, and it wasn't until recently that she wrote a book, her very first. And I could not be prouder because this woman has been in the mental health space for like 30 years. She's been in business with herself for 20 of those 30 years, running private practices and nonprofits and all that stuff. Like, I know this woman has seen stuff. I know she's got stories galore. So the fact that she finally decided to sit down, throw it in a book, to me is just such a giant personal success. And the fun part for me now is telling her what to do after that book is out there. And that kind of got me thinking that, most of the folks that I end up chatting with, or that are referred to me, or that I have just, basic candid conversations with, are like consistently over 45, like nearing retirement or retirement age, or they're already well into retirement. And in my opinion, I think those folks tend to make for the best personal brands. And that kind of got me thinking I should probably make a video about exactly that, because I don't hear many people talking about it. There are many people who fit that age range that maybe do or don't feel super comfortable putting themselves on social media or building products or having websites or doing speaking or writing books. It's a very big lift and it can be intimidating. So I figured I would make this video to kind of help break things down if that's something that you've been thinking of as like a, kind of what if idea percolating in the back of your brain. So stick around because I think you're going to get a lot of value out of this video. So she's been thinking about retirement. What am I going to do? Am I going to run this nonprofit for a long time? Like, what are we doing? What's going on? And she doesn't necessarily want to give up the business, but also doesn't want to do it forever. So she's kind of like in this really weird limbo spot. And I have summarized this as something that I call P.A.N.N. I've spoken about it in another video before. If you want to check it out, I'll link it below and put the card in the corner somewhere. But it's called P.A.N.N. and it stands for proven method, framework, methodology, strategy. Whatever you do it in a very particular way. A is authority. You have a really strong reputation. You have every reason to speak on the stuff that you're an expert in. N is Pan. I kind of touched on this a little bit, but it's niche interest. It's a niche field. It's niche work. It's something you're at a very particular intersection. These tend to make for the best products, the best personal brands, which I'll be talking about here in a minute. And then the final N is network. I would say that this is probably the most important element of all of those things, because if you're gonna start anything, if you're thinking of starting anything, if you're wanting to launch anything, if you're wanting to write a book, it helps to have kind of like a go-to audience to help kind of get the gears going, to help kind of catapult that forward. If you think about it like a train, it's almost like it takes an exponential amount of energy to get the train going, but then once it does, it's really easy for it to kind of run itself. And if you've been in business yourself, you can understand that sentiment, because once you figure out what you're doing and you figure out what works, it's almost difficult to stop that train. And as I was kind of doing a little bit of research and prepping for this video, I was kind of looking around at stats to see if there was anything specific about those over 40, 45, 50 regarding personal brands. And while I didn't find anything super specific, I can tell you that the digital product space, which is heavily linked with personal brands, if a personal brand is kind of like you showing up as the person, as the experience, a lot of people in that position will launch courses, communities, toolkits, events. Like, they'll do all of that as an extension, almost like an experiential extension of their personal brand. So with that being said, that digital product space, it's a very, very, very warm space. In fact, it's a $290 billion industry that's grown about 16% over the last 2 years. And how personal brands can kind of play into that, I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you. I'm gonna back up and repeat myself here in a minute. But professionals with a strong personal brand often earn about 25% more on average than those who don't have one. And not only that, but about 70% of entrepreneurs tend to attribute their business growth to having a personal brand. So it's a very, very common thing to do. In fact, a lot of people are doing it. It's just you're building a digital footprint for yourself outside of whatever that immediate thing is. And the appeal of that is that it can make it more possible and more real to open up an additional revenue stream for yourself. So if you're someone who's nearing retirement, you're thinking about retiring, you're thinking, am I going to do this forever? I don't want to lose it because I don't know what else I would do in its place. Sometimes having a personal brand brand, if you can kind of build that up on the side, by the time you're ready to jump ship, you've already got this warm pool of action happening over here. And, that very well could be a very modest or maybe a rather generous stream of income for yourself while you're in retirement. It's your own money. You can do what you want with it. That's the beauty of having a personal brand. You can do business however you want to do business. There is certainly no right or wrong way. It's purely just preference. And I would say it depends on your energy level and how ambitious you feel like you are at your age. But how do you know if you're even ready for something like that? Lauren, I don't think people want to sit around and listen to me. I don't think I don't want to feel like I'm talking at people all the time. I'm really not that interesting. Trust me, as someone who does this for a living, I would bet $100 that you are interesting. But probably the biggest indicator that you know you're ready to consider building something like a personal brand is that you feel like you are often repeating a lot of the same stuff to the same people. That might mean that if you're in the line of work that you're in, let's say mental health, because that's just what is top of mind for me, you have probably seen a lot of patterns among a very particular type of demographic, a very particular type of person who's in a very particular type of life stage. There's just a lot of patterns that you've probably noticed, and you're almost at the point of wanting to scream at people, here's what you're doing wrong, or here's what you need to be doing, or here's what you are doing right. That's the good stuff. That's the stuff that you can build on. And I would say the second indicator is just like, you just don't feel like you're quite ready to be done. Like you don't really want to stick your career up on the shelf. You're just really not that kind of person. I think those are probably the two biggest things or qualities that I tend to see in folks that I work with who typically have been like over 50. And if you feel like that's you, if you feel like this is kind of resonating, I tend to think a really, really easy starting point, if you just kind of want to play around with this idea of starting a personal brand, if you think you have something to say, but you're really not sure, if you just don't necessarily want everyone and their mother to know that you're starting this new endeavor, a book can be a really soft way of sort of playing around with that idea. You're just kind of seeing how stretchy it is, how malleable it is, because that's part of the creative process, is whenever you have a new idea and you're sort of unsure about whether or not to execute on it, it's really common and really a quite popular way of kind of playing around with that idea and seeing how stretchy and malleable it is by, toying around with the idea of a book. And the benefit of writing a book, because I know you know a lot of stuff, taking all that and productizing it by turning it into a copyright protected piece of material that is a book, there's instant credibility that comes with something like that. You can't unmake a book. No one can really steal ideas from a book because it is copyright protected, if that's a concern of yours. It's evergreen, it's documented IP. There's so many benefits. And you know what? Even nowadays, with the boom that has been the self-publishing space over the last decade or probably more, it's becoming very, very common for anyone and everyone to write a book. Now, I'm not about to get too deep into that because, I don't think every book necessarily needs to be written, but if you are a working professional with decades of field experience under your belt, you have every right to write a book. In fact, you probably should. If you're interested in learning more about the book space, that was something that I spent a good several years kind of dabbling in on my other channel. It's more like a personal channel. But if you check out some of my older stuff, there's a lot of good material there about the book space, understanding it, how does that whole process work, what are my options? That's kind of another conversation that I'm not prepared to have in this video, but if you're curious, I'll link all that down below. A lot of people tend to make the mistake of thinking that a book is sort of like the end of the rainbow. I have never been pregnant, but if you've been pregnant, if you know of someone who's been pregnant, the book is kind of like the birth, and there's an entire afterlife after it. You've got this idea, you're documenting it, you're writing it, you wrote a book, boom, this is kind of like the start of a new phase, and it's very, very buildable. Once you have a book, it's sort of like your ticket to expand. You can use this book as a way to get speaking engagements, do workshops, do professional training, do professional development, do continued learning and education. Like if you have a book, just because it's such a credible piece of hard information, there's just so much that you can do with that. In fact, the sort of trifecta of personal brands tends to be, or has historically been, coaching, book, speaking. That's not to say that there's like a right or a wrong way to have a personal brand. The great thing is that you can cherry pick whatever you feel like doing because it's your personal brand. We want to make sure that anything that you make or anything that you feel like is worth making, we want to protect your time, your energy, your money, and your resources. So one way is, of course, using a book to kind of gauge that interest, but the other benefit of starting with a book before building out all those other little product avenues like courses, communities, toolkits, speaking and all that stuff, is that you can use that book to sort of gauge audience interest or network receptivity. Do people like what I'm talking about? Do people seem like they want more of this? What kind of feedback am I getting from folks? This is where that network element of P.A.N.N, P-A-N-N, that warm network is really, really going to come in handy, because this is sort of like your trusted pool of like first ring contacts that you're comfortable going to who are maybe in your professional circle. This is where you can start talking to them about, I wrote this book. Would you mind just kind of like taking a peek at it, letting me know what you think? You don't have to read the whole thing, or if you want to, you can just maybe read the first 20 pages. I would love to know your thoughts. You can do a soft launch. That's, get the book out there and let that first ring of people know, hey, I wrote a book, I'm kind of keeping it on the down low. I'm just not really sure what people are going to think about something like this, but I trust you and your opinion, so why don't you tell me what you think? That kind of feedback can be so beneficial for a number of reasons. You can use that type of information to gauge, are people interested in what I have to say at all? This is kind of where you're proving it to yourself, getting rid of that imposter syndrome. You're using that feedback to get an idea of like, okay, if I were to continue the conversation somehow, what might that look like? Because rule number one of doing any kind of bookish related work, you do not want the conversation to start and end with just a book. When people are done reading it and they're like, holy cow, this is the greatest thing that I've read since XYZ, I really want to get more involved with the author. I really want to learn more about this concept that they're talking about. That's your opportunity to start thinking about, okay, how can I continue the conversation? And this is where we start to get a little bit more into building a bit of a funnel, and funnels are good. You wrote a book. People read the book. People like the book. Where do you want them to go next? Usually this is going to be a place where there's more evergreen conversations happening, or there's some kind of upsell. So it could be as complicated as you want, it can be as simple as you want. But let's say, just for the sake of simplicity, they read the book, there's a QR code in the back, people can scan it, and boom, they can get added to your newsletter. That way, you can share your thoughts on a bi-weekly basis, on a monthly basis, however often you want, but there's some kind of continual conversation happening after people read the book. And when that happens, and you are keeping up with it, and you're being consistent with those efforts, and people are engaging with it, when you do have something else to launch, like a community, like a cohort, like live events, like workshop training, like whatever, if you decide to do that, that's your first ring of people that you want to give that sort of priority access to, because they already know, like, and trust you. Those are the 3 magic words of marketing. If they read the book, they're added to your newsletter. When you have something to launch, hey guys, get excited. I've got this new thing happening over there, and it's easier to kind of have that pool of people to tap into. Maybe you want to do something like my guy Steve did. Steve is 81 years old as of my recording this, so don't think that there's ever like an I'm too old for this moment to do what you're doing. He spent over 40 years in the financial services sector. He made a lot of money for a lot of people, did it in a very particular way, wrote a book about it, and at the end of that book, we put in a QR code that basically upselled people to this private community where they can learn to self-manage their own portfolios to generate another stream of income for themselves in retirement. That's another example of a very easy, very short and sweet funnel, but continues to require consistency. If the book is like the mindset shift, hey, get on board. This is a very new idea, very niche, kind of opposite of everything that you've learned, but it is proven. Use this book as a way to kind of check if you're on board mentally with this. If you are, come join me over here at this community where I'm going to show you how to do it. Because in order to do it, you have to agree with the philosophy of it. And it's kind of like a dual sort of system. And the book is a way to kind of vet some of those folks of like, hey, if you're open to this new idea, join us over here. It's more of a curated community because a lot of these people read the book and they're not just coming in cold. You could have something as simple as read the book, follow me on LinkedIn, because I'm way more active on LinkedIn than I am on any newsletter or any community. Like I said, there's no right or wrong way to do this. It's just, how well do you know your network or your audience, and what is the best way for them to receive information in a way that still feels good for you? Because my personal philosophy with marketing is that less is more. I don't think that it's worth overcomplicating things unnecessarily, and you know yourself best. You know your habits and your methods best. If you're someone who prefers direct communication, Maybe you want to have like a weekly Zoom event or something, like a weekly, I don't know about happy hour, but like a weekly mastermind type of thing. Hey, join the room. Let's have a conversation. Let's have some prompted discussions. Maybe you're someone who does prefer typing or text-based communication. So maybe a newsletter or LinkedIn posts are your thing. But how you determine your next container, I'm kind of calling this like your overflow container, because if people are into this first thing, the like temperature gauging thing that you made, i.e. the book, if they're into that and they want more, that overflow of enthusiasm needs to be channeled into something else. What that something else is, it really just kind of depends on what you're interested in. If you are interested in teaching people how to do something on their own, maybe you do want a community, or maybe you create some kind of toolkit that they can download. If you want to have those curated discussions, maybe it is a mastermind that you make, or some kind of private little, group of people with a limited number of seats. If you want something that's like a done for you type of practice or implementation, maybe you start playing around with software or making an app. If you think people need additional training, maybe that's a great opportunity for professional development or online or in-person workshops. It's just you know your network, you know your audience better than anyone else. And the perk of starting with that first ring of network contacts is that they can vouch for you because they already know you. And if they know you, and if they like you, and if they further like what you're writing or like what you're making, it's almost hard to not want to share it with other people. Because if they like it and it works, you're already pre-vetted to anyone that they recommend it to. And they can also say, I genuinely think that what they made is like good. And that's what we want. That word of mouth is like the gold standard for any kind of marketing. The best form of marketing is always going to be word of mouth. It is so hard to top because there's already that like, know, and trust built in. So it's so easy to sell. This way, you don't have to deal with social media. This way, you don't have to deal with ads. You don't have to worry about doing any of these cheap theatrics to get people's attention. It's very reputation sensitive if you're someone who is in law and finance and leadership and consulting and nonprofits. Like those are some seriously high trust spaces where a lot of it is based on, who knows you, how they know you, what they like or don't like about you. It's very, very reputation heavy. So if you're worried about that kind of thing, you've got that network, that pool of people to kind of lean into, that they can kind of help keep that cushion, that little reputational safety cushion around your name, your brand, your face, your image, what you stand for. Arguably, in my opinion, this is why I think traditional broad marketing tactics tend to not work for that type of group of folks or for those fields. You don't need social media, you don't need lead magnets, you don't need cheap trends or cheap theatrics or anything to get the point across. It's very intentional. It's very much rooted in that built-in audience. It's very much rooted in a proven method, strategy, framework. It rests in that very particular niche or field or that intersection that you're involved in. It's a warm now. This is what P.A.N.N is all about. P.A.N.N, that acronym that I talked about at the beginning of this video. That's what this is all about. It's just simplifying things and working with what already works. So before I wrap up this video, I do want to kind of go over a few FAQs that I've heard about from folks who are later in life and are a little hesitant about this idea still. So if this is you, stick around. I might be able to answer some of your questions. I'm not comfortable with self-promotion. I never have been. That's okay. Self-promotion, despite the name, is not about you. It's really not. You just happen to be the person that made the thing. It's all about the message. It's all about the benefit. It's how it's serving people. Because I'm assuming whatever you do or whatever you have a history of working in, whatever field, whatever your role is or has been, I'm assuming that it's meant to better people or make their lives easier or help them in some kind of way, right? If that's the case, make it about the message or the impact or the problem that you're solving. It's not you. It's not, hey, I'm Susan and I wrote a book, come buy it because you know me. That might kind of get, that's going to help with some of those initial sales because people like you, they know you, they trust you, they're wanting to help you out. But if you're wanting anything beyond that, it's all about, hey, I'm Susan. I've spent X number of years in this field. I've seen these types of things happen all the time. And honestly, it's bothered me for so long. I just decided, hey, might as well write a book about it. And that's what this is. This tool, this resource, this thing is meant to serve these people facing this problem in this way so that they have X outcome. That's the difference. I sort of touched on this one in the beginning, but I'm not sure people even like me. I don't think, Lauren, I think you're thinking a little too highly of me. I really don't know. I think you would be surprised. I really do. That's also what the soft launch of something like a book is for. It is for that interest gauging. It is to see, okay, like how is this landing? How are people interacting with this? What is the feedback that I'm getting back from people? That's what something like a book is really great for, because it's a great piece of credibility that you can absolutely leverage for yourself and your own self-interest. And at the same time, like I said, it's that ticket to kind of get you in, because so many people want to write a book, but very, very few of those people actually do. So if you are one of those few that have written something like a book, that's what that soft launch is for. That's what that initial push is for. Hey, Jimmy, I wrote this book about this thing. I'm really not sure what people are going to think about it. Would you mind just taking a sweep of it, letting me know what you think? It's meant to gauge that initial interest. And if those first or maybe second ring of people in your network are willing to do that and read it for you and provide that kind of feedback, I think that would give you some peace of mind to continue pushing that out if you believe in it enough. I feel like I'm too old for this, girlfriend. No, you're not. I don't know if you caught what I said earlier, but my oldest client, who's been with me for a good couple years now, is 81 as of my recording this. The most active 81-year-old I have ever seen. Oh my God, he's like biking 20 miles a day. Dude is active. Okay, so don't even act like you're too old to do something like this. It's however much energy you have. If you're tired and you don't want to work, don't do that. If you're someone who's like, I really struggle with the idea of fully retiring, I don't even know what I would do in retirement, yeah, play around with something like this. Don't let age stop you. In fact, people who are retirement age or well into retirement are some of my absolute favorite people to work with. You've got so much to share. You've got so much knowledge, so much expertise. There's so much good information to tap into that is fully marketable. So don't do that. I'm still not really sure about this idea of starting a personal brand. Like, I'm really not techie. I don't know the first thing about how to do that. Firstly, treat it as a side project. Just kind of poke around with it. There's no right. Any new thing that you start is not going to have a beautiful beginning. Any new book that you write is going to be garbage. Doesn't need to be good. It just needs to be made. This is something that is extremely common nowadays. At the same time, it is worth saying that we're kind of in the age of social media and digital marketing. It's very easy to kind of see everyone's highlight reel and feel like everyone's doing it better than you. There is no right way to start. There is no beautiful way to start. The best way to start is to just start. Easier said than done. Try it out. If you don't like it, you don't have to do anything with it. If you'd rather watch a few more videos or read some more books about personal brands, go for it. But as someone who does this kind of work for a living, if you're really into the idea and you're like, that sounds like so much work for someone like me, give me a call, we'll talk about it, and I'll see if I can help you out. That's what I do for a living. Lastly, and very importantly, what if I'm still working? How can I separate my personal brand from my business brand? Excellent question. In my opinion, I would say that the difference between a personal and a business brand is that a personal brand is generally, from what I have seen in people that I work with, meant to educate. Businesses are meant to serve. If you're talking about here's what I know and here's what I'm wanting to support other people with and educate other people on, that's a personal brand. If you're thinking about this is the work, this is our process, this is our method, these are our case studies, this is how we do it, that's more of a business brand. So hopefully that makes sense and that helps you feel a little bit better. So with all of this being said, I know we covered a lot of ground. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Best way to direct those questions is going to be in the comments section below. Otherwise, if you would rather get in touch with me directly, if you're feeling a little shy or a little silly about some of the questions that you have, feel free to shoot me a message. I will be sure to leave my website down below. There's going to be a contact page. Drop all your questions. That's going to come directly to me. We can get a conversation going. Otherwise, if there's anything else that you're curious to learn about as far as digital products, as far as personal brands, as far as how do I package, monetize, market my expertise, my IP, what is that? I want to learn more about that. Let me know. And I'm happy to talk about it. I nerd out so much about this stuff. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video. Be sure to check out some of my other videos as well. I think you're going to get a lot of value out of it. I think they'll provide a lot of context for you. But until then, I will see you in the next video. Take care until then. Bye.